The Valorian Dominion had ruled 1,000 worlds for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across the galaxy like a dark blanket, covering everything it touched. No species had ever defeated them. No planet had ever escaped their control. Their fleets numbered in the millions, and their warriors had never known the bitter taste of loss. Emperor Zelvax the Eternal sat upon his throne made from the bones of conquered kings. He was old beyond counting, kept alive by technology stolen from civilizations his armies had crushed. His eyes, cold and yellow, stared at screens showing his vast empire. He was bored. Conquest had lost its excitement long ago. Now he collected extinct species like others collected precious stones. He kept the last survivors of dead worlds in cages for his amusement. On this day, like every other day, reports came in from across the galaxy. Slaves worked. Resources flowed. Rebellion was crushed before it could begin. The Dominion was perfect in its cruelty. Nothing ever changed. Then something did. A young officer ran into the throne room, his scales pale with fear. He fell to his knees before the Emperor, pressing his face against the cold floor. "Speak," Zelvax commanded. His voice was like stones grinding together. "A ship, my Emperor. A ship has appeared at the galaxy's edge. It came through a spatial rift. We have never seen its design before." Zelvax leaned forward slightly. This was new. New things were rare. One ship. Yes, my Emperor. It is small, barely the size of a scout cruiser. It appears damaged. Old. It trails radiation that suggests it has traveled very far. The Emperor smiled. His teeth were sharp and black. Interesting. Where did it come from? We do not know. The rift opened in dead space, a region we have never explored because nothing exists there. Beyond our galaxy entirely, Zelvax stood from his throne. His ancient body creaked like a dying tree. "Show me this ship." The screen changed to show the strange vessel. It was ugly, by Valorian standards, angular and scarred. Burn marks covered its hull like old wounds. But it moved with purpose, pushing deeper into Dominion space, as if it belonged there. "It is broadcasting," the officer said, "on all frequencies, in languages we have never heard. Our translators are working to decode it." "Let me hear it," the speakers crackled. Then a voice filled the throne room. It was a female voice, strong and clear, speaking in words that the translator converted to Valorian. "We are the humans of Earth. We have traveled for 300 years to find a new home. Our world is gone. Our sun died and took everything we loved with it. We are the last of our kind. 2,000 souls aboard this ship. We come in peace." Zelvax laughed. It was a terrible sound. Peace. They come in peace. How delightful. "Continue." The voice went on. "But we have not been sleeping during our long journey. We have listened. We have watched. From the darkness between stars, we have seen what you do. We have heard the screams of enslaved worlds. We have witnessed your cruelty." The throne room went silent. No one spoke to the Dominion this way. No one dared. "We have detected 1,000 worlds under your control. 1,000 civilizations crushed under your heel. Billions of beings treated as property. This is not acceptable." Zelvax's smile faded slightly. "Who does this creature think she is?" The voice continued, growing harder now. "I am Captain Alara Vance of the United Earth ship Prometheus. I speak for the last humans in existence. We have nothing left. No home, no future. Nothing except this ship and the souls aboard it. You have given us something new. You have given us a purpose." There was a pause. Then Captain Vance spoke her final words. "Free the 1,000 worlds you hold in chains. Release every slave. Dismantle your empire. You have one standard rotation to respond. If you refuse, or if you ignore this message, then know this. You will face the wrath of a species with nothing left to lose. We declare war on the Valorian Dominion. All of it. Every ship. Every world. Every soldier. We are coming, and we do not know how to surrender." The message ended. For a long moment, no one in the throne room moved. Then Emperor Zelvax began to laugh. He laughed until tears rolled down his scaled face. He laughed until his ancient body shook. One ship, he howled. One tiny, broken ship declares war on us. On the Dominion. On an empire of 1,000,000 vessels. The officers around him began to laugh as well. They had no choice. When the Emperor laughed, everyone laughed. Send 50 warships, Zelvax commanded when he could speak again. Do not destroy this vessel. I want it captured. I want these humans brought to me alive. I will add them to my collection. The last of their kind. How wonderful. I will keep them in a cage and make them repeat their little speech for my amusement. Yes, my Emperor, the officer said, bowing low. It will be done within the hour. The 50 warships launched immediately. They were the finest vessels in the Dominion fleet. Each one was 100 times larger than the strange human ship. Each one carried enough weapons to burn a planet. Their crews were veterans of 1,000 conquests. They formed a perfect attack formation and jumped toward the coordinates of the Prometheus. The entire Dominion watched through relay screens. This would be entertaining. This would be over quickly. The warships arrived. They surrounded the human vessel. The commander of the fleet broadcast a message demanding surrender. He was still laughing when he sent it. The Prometheus did not respond. Instead, it did something the Valorians did not understand. It released a cloud of small objects, tiny things. The Valorians thought they were escape pods. They thought the humans were abandoning ship. They were wrong. The flash was visible across 3 star systems. Then there was nothing. No explosion, no wreckage, no distress calls, no debris. The 50 warships simply ceased to exist. They were there, and then they were gone, erased from the universe as if they had never been. The Prometheus remained, floating in the sudden silence. It had not even moved. Back in the throne room, Emperor Zelvax stared at the empty screens where 50 warships had been displayed moments before. His laughter had died. His yellow eyes were wide. What happened? He whispered. What did they do? No one answered. No one knew. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Alara Vance stood perfectly still. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her face showed nothing. First engagement complete, her second officer reported. Enemy vessels eliminated. No casualties on our side. Good, Captain, Vance said quietly. Send another message. Same as before? Tell them they now have 20 hours to respond instead of 24. Let them know that every hour they delay, they lose more time. And more ships. Yes, Captain. Vance turned to look out the main viewport at the stars of this new galaxy. These were not her stars. Earth's stars were dead, along with everything else she had ever known. Her family, her friends, her world, all gone. Consumed by a dying sun 300 years ago, but she was still here. Her crew was still here, and they had found something worth fighting for. We gave them a chance, she said to no one in particular. We always give them a chance. They never take it. They never believe us until it is too late. She closed her eyes for just a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as iron. Begin phase 2. Find me their slave worlds. Find me their victims. It is time to give this galaxy something it has never had before. What is that, Captain? Alara Vance smiled grimly. Hope. The High Command of the Valorian Dominion gathered in the war chamber for the first time in 3,000 years. The last time they had met here, it was to celebrate the final conquest of the galaxy. Now they sat in silence, staring at empty screens where 50 of their finest warships had existed just hours before. Admiral Kravix, the oldest commander in the fleet, was the first to speak. His voice shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. There must be an explanation. A spatial anomaly. A weapon malfunction? Something. Ships do not simply vanish. They did not vanish, said General Thesa, her scales dark with anger. They were destroyed. By one ship. One small, damaged ship crewed by a species we have never encountered. Impossible, another commander muttered. And yet it happened. We all watched it happen. Emperor Zelvax sat at the head of the table, his yellow eyes burning with something no one had ever seen in them before: fear. The Emperor was afraid, and that terrified everyone more than the loss of the warships. "Send more ships," Zelvax commanded. 500 this time. "Surround them completely. Attack from all directions at once. Nothing survives that." The fleet launched within the hour. 500 warships, the pride of the Dominion, jumped toward the coordinates of the Prometheus. The entire Empire watched again. This time would be different. This time, there would be victory. The fleet arrived to find the Prometheus waiting for them. It sat motionless in the void, a tiny thing surrounded by giants. The Valorian commander broadcast the demand for surrender. He did not laugh this time. The Prometheus did not respond to his message. Instead, it broadcast something else. A different message, aimed not at the Dominion fleet, but at the crews inside the ships. Captain Vance's voice filled every vessel. But she was not speaking to the Valorian commanders. She was speaking to the slaves. "I know you can hear me. I know that every Dominion warship is crewed by enslaved species, workers taken from conquered worlds, soldiers forced to fight for their oppressors. I am speaking to you now, not to your masters, to you." On the bridge of the flagship, Commander Krell screamed at his officers to cut the transmission. They tried. They could not. The human signal overrode everything. "You do not have to die for them," Captain Vance continued. "You do not have to serve them. In 300 years of traveling through the darkness between galaxies, we have learned one truth above all others. The chains that bind us are only as strong as our belief in them. Stop believing. Stop obeying. Rise." Deep in the engine rooms of the warships, the slave workers looked at each other. They had never heard such words before. They had been told since birth that they were property, that resistance was impossible, that the Dominion was eternal. But the Dominion had just lost 50 ships. The Dominion could be hurt. The Dominion could lose. It started small. One worker refused an order, then another, then 100, then 1,000. On ship after ship, the slave crews rose against their masters. The Valorian soldiers were fierce, but they were outnumbered 20-1 by the very people they had enslaved. Within 6 hours, 300 warships had turned against the Dominion. They opened fire on the vessels still under Valorian control. The fleet tore itself apart from within. By the time the battle ended, only 30 ships remained loyal to the Emperor. They fled back to report the disaster. The Prometheus had not fired a single shot on the slave world of Ket-7. A young male named Soren watched the sky through the bars of his work camp. He was thin and tired, his gray skin marked by scars from the overseer's whips. He had worked in the mines since he could walk. He had never known freedom. Neither had his parents or their parents, or anyone in his family for 1,000 generations. But tonight, the sky was different. Lights flashed in the darkness above. Fires bloomed like flowers. And then a new sound filled the air. A broadcast playing from every speaker on the planet, overriding the Dominion's control. "People of Keth-7, people of every enslaved world, my name is Captain Alara Vance. I am human. My species has traveled across the void between galaxies to reach you. We lost our home. We lost everything we loved, but we found something new. We found you." Soren pressed his face against the bars, his heart beating fast. "The Dominion has told you that you are property. They have told you that resistance is death. They have lied. 2 days ago, we destroyed 50 of their warships. Today, 300 more fell to rebellion. Their empire is not eternal. Their power is not absolute. They can be defeated, and we are here to prove it." The other prisoners gathered around Soren, listening with wide eyes. "I cannot free you alone. My ship is small, and my crew is few. But I can give you something more valuable than weapons. I can give you truth. You are not property. You are people. You have the right to live free. And every moment you believe that, every moment you refuse to accept their lies, you strike a blow against them." Soren felt something strange burning in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. He had never felt it before. It was hope. "You're coming," Captain Vance said. "Not to conquer. Not to rule. We are coming to stand beside you. To fight with you. To teach you what we have learned in our long journey through the dark. Humanity almost destroyed itself 100 times before we learned the most important lesson of all. We are stronger together than we are alone." The broadcast ended. The overseers rushed to regain control, but the damage was done. Across Ket 7, slaves began to whisper. Across 1,000 worlds, the same whispers spread like fire in the war chamber. Emperor Zelvax listened to reports of uprisings on dozens of planets. His claws dug into the table, leaving deep gouges in the ancient wood. "How?" he demanded. "How is one ship doing this?" General Thesa stepped forward. "My Emperor, we have analyzed their tactics. They do not fight like any species we have ever encountered. They do not seek to destroy our fleets directly. They seek to destroy our control. They attack our communications. They spread messages to our slaves. They target our officers while leaving the enslaved crews alive. Then stop them. Find them, kill them. We are trying, my Emperor, but they are ... strange. They hide where we cannot find them. They strike and disappear. They use tactics we have no defense against." "What tactics?" Thesa hesitated. "They fight as if they expect to lose, my Emperor. They take risks no sane commander would take. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They keep fighting even when they are wounded, even when they are outnumbered, even when victory is impossible. We have studied the recordings. They do not behave like soldiers. They behave like ... double quotes, like what? Like they have nothing left to lose. And that makes them more dangerous than any enemy we have ever faced." Zelvax slammed his fist against the table. "Then take away their hope. Burn the slave worlds. Show them what happens when they rebel." Thesa bowed her head. "As you command, my Emperor," the orders went out. The Dominion would respond to rebellion with extinction. The first target would be Kethsaven, where the uprisings had spread fastest. On the Prometheus, Captain Vance received the intelligence from her spy networks. She stood alone in her quarters, looking at the holographic map of the galaxy. Keth. T blinked red. 10,000 warships were gathering to destroy it. Commander Marcus Chen found her there. He was her oldest friend, the only other survivor from the original crew, who remembered Earth before it burned. "We cannot save them," Chen said quietly. "We are one ship. Even with the rebel vessels that have joined us, we cannot face 10,000. "I know," Vance replied. "If we try, we will die. Our mission will end. Everything we have worked for will be lost." "I know." "Then what do we do?" Vance was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to face her friend. Her eyes were tired, but there was iron beneath the weariness. "Put it to a vote. Every soul aboard this ship. Tell them the situation. Tell them the odds. Then ask them, do we run and save ourselves? Or do we fight and probably die for people we have never met?" Chen nodded slowly. "And if they vote to fight?" Captain Vance smiled sadly. "Then we fight. Because that is what humans do. We stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. Even if it kills us. Especially if it kills us." The vote was unanimous. The Prometheus set course for Ket 7, across 1,000 worlds. The enslaved whispered a new word, human. They did not know what it meant. They had never seen one. But they knew what the word tasted like on their tongues. It tasted like hope. In the minds of Ket 7, Soren had stopped working. So had everyone else. The overseers screamed and cracked their whips, but the slaves no longer flinched. Something had changed. The fear that had controlled them for 1,000 generations was beginning to crack. "They are coming," Soren told the others. "The humans. They are coming for us." "How do you know?" An older worker asked. She had been in the mines for 50 years. She had forgotten what sunlight looked like, because they said they would. And they have not lied to us yet. 3 days later, a shuttle landed outside the work camp. It was small and battered, carrying scars from a dozen battles. The door opened and a human stepped out. Soren had expected something impressive. A giant, perhaps. A warrior covered in weapons. Instead, he saw a small figure in a simple uniform. She was shorter than most of the slaves. Her skin was brown and smooth, without scales or armor. She looked fragile, breakable. But her eyes were not fragile at all. "I am Commander Maya Torres," she said. "I am here to teach you how to fight." The overseers tried to stop her. They lasted about 30 seconds. Torres moved faster than Soren could follow. When she was done, the overseers were unconscious on the ground, and she was not even breathing hard. "First lesson," Torres said to the stunned slaves. "The Dominion has told you that you are weak, that you cannot fight. That is a lie. You are only weak because they have made you believe you are weak. Belief is the first battlefield. Today we change what you believe." Over the following weeks, everything changed. Torres did not just teach them to fight. She taught them to think. She shared the history of humanity. How they had once been slaves themselves. How they had fought endless wars against each other. How they had almost destroyed their own world a dozen times before learning to work together. "We are not perfect," Torres told them. "We have made terrible mistakes. But we have learned from them. Every time we fell, we got back up. Every time we failed, we tried again. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not our weapons. Not our technology. Our refusal to give up." Soren trained harder than anyone. He learned to shoot. He learned to hide. He learned to plan. Most importantly, he learned to hope. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human teams landed on 100 worlds, always small, always quiet. They did not come as conquerors. They came as teachers. They shared knowledge freely. They asked for nothing in return except one thing: unity. "The Dominion is strong because you are divided," they said everywhere they went. They conquered you one world at a time. They keep you separated because they fear what would happen if you joined together. So join together. Forget your old conflicts. Forget your differences. You have one enemy now. Stand together, and that enemy will fall. Some species had been enemies for longer than humans had existed. Old hatreds ran deep. But the human teachers were patient. They told stories of Earth's history, how nations that once tried to destroy each other now lived as neighbors, how enemies became friends when they faced a common threat. Slowly, impossibly, the walls began to come down. On the Prometheus, Captain Vance reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Uprisings on 200 worlds, rebel fleets forming in a dozen systems, an army growing in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. But time was running out. The Dominion Armada would reach Kethsavan in less than a week. 10,000 warships against a handful of rebels and one human vessel. "We need more time," Commander Chen said. "The coalition is not ready. We do not have more time." The Emperor chose Keth-7 for a reason. It was the first world to openly rebel. If he destroys it, he sends a message to every other world. Resist, and you die. We cannot let that message be sent. Then what do? Vance stared at the map. We buy time. We slow them down. We hit their supply lines, disrupt their communications, force them to divert ships. Every hour we delay is another hour for the coalition to grow. If it is not enough, then we die fighting. But we make our deaths count. We inspire others to continue after we are gone. The door to the command center opened. Torres entered, followed by a thin gray figure with scars on his skin. Captain Torres said, "This is Soren of Keth-7. He wishes to join our crew." Vance studied the young alien. He was clearly nervous, but his eyes held a fire that reminded her of her own crew. "Why?" she asked simply. Soren swallowed hard. "Because you gave my people something we never had. Hope. I want to learn how to give that gift to others. I want to fight beside the humans who fight for us." Vance nodded slowly. "It will be dangerous. We may not survive the coming battle. I have lived in chains my whole life. If I die free, fighting for freedom, then my death has more meaning than my life ever did." For a long moment, Captain Vance said nothing. Then she smiled, the first real smile she had shown in weeks. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus, Soren of Keth 7. You are the first of your kind to serve with us. You will not be the last." In the days that followed, others came. The Mindari, a telepathic species who had hidden their true abilities from the Dominion for centuries. They could link minds across vast distances, creating a communication network the enemy could not intercept. The Crystallons, beings of living crystal, who could absorb energy and redirect it. They offered to serve as shields for the fleet. The deep-born aquatic creatures who could survive in the vacuum of space. They volunteered for missions too dangerous for anyone else. Each species brought gifts that humans did not have, and humans shared what they had in return. Tactics, technology, and most importantly, the unbreakable belief that victory was possible. On the night before the fleet departed for Keth 7, Soren found Captain Vance standing alone on the observation deck. She was looking at the stars, her face unreadable. "I ask you something, Captain?" Vance did not turn around. "Of course. Why did you come here? You could have found a quiet planet somewhere. You could have rebuilt your species in peace. Why did you choose to fight?" Vance was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "When Earth died, I was young. I watched my world burn from the viewport of the evacuation ship. I swore that day that if I ever had the power to save others from that pain, I would use it, no matter the cost." She finally turned to face him. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "We traveled for 300 years, Soren. 300 years in the dark between galaxies. We had nothing but each other and our memories. Some of us went mad. Some of us gave up. But most of us kept going. Do you know why?" Soren shook his head. "Because we believed that somewhere out there were others who needed us. Others who were suffering. Others who were waiting for someone to stand beside them. We could not save Earth. We could not bring back our dead. But we could make their deaths mean something. We could build something new. Something worth dying for." She put her hand on his shoulder. It was warm and solid. "Tomorrow, we face 10,000 warships with a fleet of rebels and stolen vessels. The odds are against us. We will probably die. But here is what I've learned in my long life, Soren. The odds do not matter. Numbers do not matter. What matters is whether you are willing to stand up. What matters is whether you fight. Humanity has always been small compared to the universe. We have always been outnumbered by the forces against us, and we have always refused to let that stop us." She smiled grimly. "Tomorrow, we teach the Dominion what it means to face a species that does not know how to surrender. And whatever happens, the galaxy will never be the same." Soren felt the fire in his chest burn brighter than ever. "I am ready, Captain. I know you are. Now get some rest. Tomorrow, we make history." The Dominion Armada arrived at Keth 7 like a cloud of death. 10,000 warships blackened the sky above the planet, their weapons charged, their crews ready. At the center of the formation sat the Throne Eternal, the largest vessel ever built, carrying Emperor Zelvax himself. He had come to watch the destruction personally. He wanted to see the hope drain from the eyes of every rebel in the galaxy. From his command throne, Zelvax looked down at the world he was about to burn. He felt nothing. He had burned 100 worlds before this one. He would burn 100 more after. This was simply what the Dominion did. This was order. This was power. Then the Prometheus emerged from behind, Keth 7's largest moon. One ship. Small, scarred, ancient. It positioned itself. Directly between the Armada and the planet. Like a single candle standing against a hurricane, Zelvax laughed. After all his fear, after all his worry, the humans had come to die. How convenient. "Broadcast on all frequencies," he commanded. "I want every world to see this." The screens across the Empire flickered to life. Billions of beings watched as the Emperor addressed the tiny human vessel. "Captain Vance, I remember your name. You threatened me. You declared war on my empire. You killed my ships and turned my slaves against me. And now here you are, one ship against 10,000. Do you have any final words before I erase your species from existence? Captain Vance's voice came through the speakers, calm and clear. I do have words for you, Emperor, but they are not for you. They are for everyone else who is watching. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 300 years of wandering, 300 years of loss, 300 years of hope. People of the 1,000 worlds, slaves of the Dominion, you have been told that resistance is impossible. You have been told that you are weak, that you are property, that you exist only to serve. You have been told that hope is a lie. I am here to tell you the truth, Zelvac snarled. Cut the transmission. His officers tried. They could not. The human signal overrode everything. 12 days ago, I entered this galaxy with 2,000 humans aboard one ship. We had nothing but our courage and our refusal to accept injustice. Today we stand against 10,000 warships, and we do not stand alone. Behind the Prometheus, space itself seemed to tear apart. Jump rifts opened across the system, hundreds of them, then thousands. Ships poured through, not dozens, not hundreds, millions. They were not warships, not most of them. They were cargo haulers and mining vessels and passenger liners. They were ancient ships recovered from dead civilizations and new ships built in secret factories. They were crewed by Mindari and Crystallons and Deepborn and 100 other species. They were the coalition of the forgotten, rising at last. Zelvac stared at the screens in disbelief. How? How is this possible? General Thessa's voice shook. My Emperor, they have been building this force for weeks. In secret, under our noses. We never saw them because we were not looking. We thought the rebellion was just slaves with stolen weapons. We were wrong. On the surface of Ket 7, Soren led thousands of freed slaves out of the mines. They carried weapons provided by the humans. Simple weapons, but enough. They looked up at the sky and saw the impossible, an army coming to save them. Captain Vance spoke again. Emperor Zelvax, you asked me for final words? Here they are. We are one ship. You are 10,000, but we carry the fury of every species you have ever crushed. We carry the grief of every world you have ever burned. We carry the hope of every soul you have ever claimed as property. Today, you learn why humans are dangerous. Today, you learn why we cross the void between galaxies. We do not know how to surrender. We do not know how to give up. And we have absolutely nothing left to lose. She turned to her crew. All ships, attack. The Battle of Keth 7 began. The Dominion fleet had superior firepower. They had better training. They had 10,000 years of conquest behind them. But they had never faced an enemy like this. The coalition did not fight like a proper military. They fought like people with nothing to lose. They took risks no sane commander would take. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation to protect others. The Mindari linked their minds together, creating a communication network that spanned the entire battlefield. They knew what the enemy would do before the enemy did it. The Crystallons flew into the heart of the Dominion formation, absorbing the energy of their weapons and turning it back against them. The Deepborn attached themselves to enemy holes and tore through them with their bare claws. And at the center of it all, though, the Prometheus led the charge. Captain Vance had spent 300 years studying war. She had learned from the mistakes of 1,000 dead civilizations. She knew tactics that the Dominion had never seen. She hit them where they were weakest, retreated before they could respond, struck again from a different angle. The battle raged for 6 hours. Both sides took terrible losses. But the Dominion was losing faster. Their discipline began to crack. Their formations began to break. For the first time in 12,000 years, they were afraid. On the surface of Kef 7, Soren fought beside Commander Torres. The Dominion had landed ground troops to slaughter the civilian population. They had not expected resistance. They found it everywhere. Push forward. Torres shouted, "Protect the evacuation ships. Buy them time." Soren fired his weapon again and again. He saw friends fall beside him. He saw enemies fall before him. He did not stop. He could not stop. Everything he had ever believed had been proven true. The Dominion could be defeated. The slaves could fight. Freedom was possible. In orbit, Commander Chen assembled a boarding party. 50 humans and 100 allied volunteers. Their target, the throne eternal. The Emperor is the symbol of the Dominion, Chen told them. As long as he sits on that throne, they will keep fighting. We need to show the galaxy that he is not a god. He is just another tyrant, and tyrants can fall. They launched in assault shuttles, screaming through the chaos of battle. Half of them were destroyed before they reached the flagship. The rest crashed through the hull and began fighting their way inside. The corridors of the throne eternal were filled with the Emperor's personal guard, the finest warriors in the Dominion. They fought with fury born of desperation. They knew that if the Emperor fell, everything fell. Chen's team pushed forward anyway. They lost soldiers at every turn. By the time they reached the throne room, only Chen and 2 others remained, a young human private named Yuki and a deep-born warrior named Kreth. The doors exploded inward. They charged through. Emperor Zelvax sat on his throne of bones, waiting for them. He was ancient and terrible, his body twisted by centuries of dark technology. In his hand, he held a weapon older than most civilizations. So he said, "You are the humans. The species that has caused me so much trouble." Aon raised his weapon. "It is over, Zelvax. Your fleet is broken. Your empire is crumbling. Surrender now, and you might survive to see trial." Zelvax laughed. It was the same terrible sound he had made when he first heard Captain Vance's message. But now, there was something else in it. Something desperate. "You think you have one? You think killing me ends this? The Dominion is not one emperor. The Dominion is an idea. The strong rule the weak. That idea is as old as life itself. It will outlive us all." Chen did not lower his weapon. "You are right. Ideas are immortal. That is why we brought a better one. And what idea is that? That everyone deserves to be free. That the strong should protect the weak, not crush them. That hope is more powerful than fear. That is the idea we have spread across your empire. That is the idea that brought millions of ships to fight you today. And that is the idea that will still be standing long after you are dust." Zelvax raised his weapon. Chen was faster. The shot hit the Emperor in the chest, and he collapsed back onto his throne of bones. But he was not dead. Not yet. His ancient technology kept him alive, even now. "The broadcast," Chen said to Yuki. Now Yuki activated the transmission. Every screen in the Empire showed the same image. Emperor Zelvax, wounded, defeated. His throne room filled with humans and their allies. Chen spoke into the broadcast. "People of the Dominion, your emperor has fallen. Your fleet is broken. The war is over. But we do not ask for your submission. We do not want your surrender. We want something more. We want you to be free. All of you, the slaves and the masters alike. We are not here to conquer. We are here to build something new. A galaxy where no one is property. A galaxy where everyone has the right to live in peace." He looked down at the dying emperor. "The old way is finished. It is time for a new beginning." Across 1,000 worlds, beings who had never known anything but chains watched the broadcast. And for the first time in 12,000 years, they began to believe that something better was possible. The Battle of Keth 7 was over. The war was just beginning. The broadcast reached every corner of the fallen empire within hours. Emperor Zelvax, in chains, standing before a council of every species he had ever oppressed. Not executed. Not tortured. Tried. Given a chance to defend himself before his victims. Given a chance that he had never given anyone else. It was the strangest thing the galaxy had ever seen. The humans did not want vengeance. They wanted justice. And justice, the liberated peoples were learning, was something very different from revenge. The trial lasted for 30 days. Representatives from 100 worlds spoke. They told stories of suffering that stretched back thousands of years. They wept. They raged. They demanded death. But in the end, the council voted not to execute the emperor. They voted to imprison him for the rest of his natural life, forced to watch as the empire he had built crumbled into something new. Death would be mercy, Captain Vance told the council. Let him live long enough to see everything he believed in proven wrong. Let him watch as the species he called weak build a civilization greater than anything he could imagine. That is true justice. The war did not end with the Battle of Keth-7. It could not. The Dominion had ruled for 12,000 years. Its systems of control ran deep. Holdouts fought for decades. Some sectors refused to accept the new order. Some commanders chose death over surrender. The coalition had to fight 100 smaller battles before the last Dominion flag came down. But the real challenge was not military. It was something much harder. Teaching people how to be free. Billions of beings had been born in chains. They had never made a choice for themselves. They did not know how to live without masters. Some of them did not want to try. Freedom was terrifying. Freedom meant responsibility. Freedom meant that if you failed, you had no one to blame but yourself. The humans understood this better than anyone. They had faced the same challenge on Earth centuries ago. They had made terrible mistakes. They had learned from them. Commander Torres led teams of teachers across the liberated worlds. They did not impose human ways on others. They simply shared what they knew. How to build governments that served the people instead of controlling them. How to create economies where everyone could prosper. How to resolve conflicts without violence. How to turn enemies into neighbors. It was slow work, painful work. Some worlds rejected the new ways and fell back into tyranny. Some species turned on each other, old hatreds surfacing now that the common enemy was gone. The coalition nearly collapsed a dozen times in the first decade, but humans were patient. They had waited 300 years to find a new home. They could wait a little longer to help build a new galaxy. 50 years after the Battle of Keth-7, the Galactic Council met in a great hall built on the ruins of the Dominion's capital. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to discuss the future. The chamber was filled with beings of every shape and size. Species that had once been enslaved sat beside species that had once been their masters. They did not always agree. They argued constantly, but they talked instead of fighting. They debated instead of warring. It was messy. It was frustrating. It was democracy. At the center of the chamber, a statue of Captain Vance stood in quiet dignity. She had died 10 years after the war, peacefully, in her sleep. Her last words had been, "We did it. We found a home." Her ashes were scattered among the stars she had loved. The council had offered humanity the throne. More than once? After everything they had done, after leading the rebellion that freed 1,000 worlds, they had earned the right to rule. Every species agreed. The humans had proved themselves. Admiral Chen, who had taken command after Vance's death, had refused. "We did not cross the galaxy to become new tyrants," he told the council. "We came to find a home. We found something better. We found a family." Instead of ruling, humanity became something more important. Teachers, diplomats, peacekeepers, they traveled between worlds, helping resolve disputes, sharing knowledge, building bridges between species that had never spoken before. The Prometheus was retired from service and placed in orbit around Keth-7. It became a monument, not to human victory, but to what free peoples could accomplish together. Visitors came from across the galaxy to walk its ancient corridors and remember the ship that had changed everything. On the 50th anniversary of the battle, an elderly Soren walked through the halls of the Galactic Council. His gray skin was wrinkled now, marked by the years. He had served as ambassador for Keth-7 for 3 decades. He had watched his world transform from a prison into a paradise. He had helped build something his ancestors could never have imagined. He paused before the statue of Captain Vance. Lost in memories, a young human woman approached him. She had brown skin and dark eyes that reminded Soren of someone he had known long ago. Her name was Arya Vance. She was Captain Vance's granddaughter. "Ambassador Soren," she said with a smile. "You seem lost in thought." Soren returned the smile. "I was remembering something your grandmother told me once. I have thought about it often over the years. What did she say? I asked her why humans came to save us. You had lost everything. Your world, your people, your future. You could have found a quiet corner of the galaxy and rebuilt in peace. Why did you choose to fight for strangers you had never met? Arya tilted her head. What did she say? Soren looked up at the statue. Captain Vance's face was calm and strong, frozen in stone, but somehow still alive, she said. Because when you have nothing left, you finally understand what matters. And what matters is each other. Arya was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. Sounds like her. They stood together in silence, human and Kethian, two beings from different worlds united by history and hope. Do you think she knew? Soren asked. When she flew that little ship into our galaxy and declared war on an empire? Do you think she knew what it would lead to? I think she hoped, Arya replied. That is what humans do. We hope even when hope seems impossible. Especially when hope seems impossible. Soren smiled. I have lived among humans for 50 years. I have studied your history. I have watched your children grow up beside my own. And I still do not fully understand you. How can one species contain so much darkness and so much light? How can you be capable of such cruelty and such kindness? How can you be so small and yet change so much? Arya laughed softly. That is the mystery, is it not? We do not understand ourselves either. We just keep trying. We keep making mistakes. We keep learning. We keep hoping that tomorrow will be better than today. Perhaps that is all any of us can do. The council session was about to begin. Representatives were filing into the chamber, preparing for another day of argument and debate and slow, painful progress. Soren looked around at them. 100 species that had once been enemies, now working together. A galaxy that had once been a prison, now filled with possibility. A future that had once seemed impossible, now unfolding with every passing day. She was right, you know, he said to Arya, as they walked toward their seats. Your grandmother. What matters is each other. I did not understand that when I was young. I thought what mattered was survival, power, safety. But those things are empty without others to share them with. The Dominion ruled 1,000 worlds, and they were alone. We freed those worlds, and now we have something they never did. We have each other. Arya squeezed his arm gently. Then let us go argue with each other. That is what families do, Soren laughed. It was a good laugh, full of warmth and life. Outside the council hall, the sun was setting over the new capital. Children played in the streets, beings of a dozen different species running and laughing together. They did not remember the old days. They did not know what it was like to be slaves. They had been born free, and they took that freedom for granted. That was good. That was how it should be. Somewhere among the stars, new humans were being born who would never know what it meant to be alone in the universe. New Kethians were growing up who would never wear chains. New futures were opening up that no one could predict. The journey was not over. It would never be over. There would always be new challenges, new conflicts, new struggles. That was the price of freedom. That was the cost of hope. But that was also the gift. The chance to keep growing. The chance to keep learning. The chance to keep building something better. Humans had come to the galaxy with nothing. But one small ship and the courage to stand against. Injustice, they left behind a universe transformed. And somewhere in the endless dark between stars, new travelers were setting out on journeys of their own. Other species, other civilizations, other dreamers looking up at the sky and wondering what lay beyond. They would find the humans waiting for them. Ready to share the greatest gift? One species could give another? The belief that tomorrow could be better than today? The knowledge that no one has? To face the darkness alone, the simple, powerful, unbreakable truth that Captain Alara Vance had carried across the void between galaxies. We are stronger together than we are alone.